girls. Happy Wednesday. We're midweek. We're midweek through our lessons, and I'm super excited to see how well you guys are going to do today. Yesterday we were talking about verb tenses. Our simple verb tenses are past, present, and future. So in the past, we know that we can either add ed, or it might be an irregular verb where we need to change the spelling. Our present tense verbs are our regular basic words like walk, talk, swim, dance. Sometimes we need to add an S to them depending on the subject. And then our future tense verbs include adding the word will to the beginning to show that this is something that will happen in the future. Now, when we are writing with verb tenses, it's very important to use the correct tense depending on what you are trying to tell the reader and when the action is happening in your story or in your writing piece. So today we're going to talk about how sometimes when we're writing, not every sentence is going to be in the same verb tense. Sometimes there are going to be changes in verb tense, but you have to make sure that you're doing this in the correct way for the correct reasons. So today we're going to focus a lot on context clues and looking at our time words to see how the verbs are changing and to see what we need to do in order to change them correctly. All right, so let's get started. It says, read the passage. Circle the correct form of the verb to complete each sentence. So they are giving us already options that we are going to choose from. So really what we're going to focus is on our thinking skills. How are we going to find out that answer? What are the context clues we are looking for? So let's look at the first sentence. It says, Victoria Woodhull was or is a newspaper owner in the 1800s. Now, was tells me it happened in the past. Is, that means right now she is, so that would be the present. So these two linking verbs here are being used optionally, but we need to pay attention to the context clues and find out, okay, was she in the past or is she right now? Now here are my context clues and my keywords. Already I see something very important here. I see a time word, 1800s. The 1800s have already happened, so that was in the past. Therefore, I make this connection to was. Victoria Woodhull was a newspaper owner in the 1800s. Let's continue. She also blank and blank stocks on Wall Street. Now, we're still talking, so I'm still looking at my context clues. I'm still talking about the 1800s. It is still the past tense, so I need to choose my past tense verbs. Now, this is an irregular verb for buy. This is a present tense. I need to choose past because of my context clues telling me what time this was happening. Same thing for the word sell. We're not going to use the present tense. We are using the past tense. Okay, which is also an irregular verb. Because we can't add ed, we can't say sold stocks, we say sold stocks. Continuing on. Today, these blank, not unusual activities for a woman. What's your context clue? Do you see it? Right away I see this. Today. Today, these are not unusual activities for a woman. This one would represent past, but since now we're talking about today, our context clues are changing, then we say are. So this is how, or this is already an example of how we can change our verb tenses depending on what is happening and when it is happening. Okay? They're talking about today. These are not unusual. So that means in this time today, it's not unusual for a woman to be a newspaper owner or to buy and sell stocks on Wall Street. Okay? But back then, Woodhull, so now we're talking again about Woodhull, which she's from the 1800s. We're talking about back then, right? So these are my context clues that I'm using. So let's continue. But back then, Woodhull blank something that few other women blank. Now, if it's talking about back then, if it's talking about Woodhull from the 1800s, am I using past, present, or future? Past. So I'm going to choose was doing and did. Do represents the present and is doing represents the present, but we're not talking about the present, so that's very important. Okay, let's continue on. You read with me now. In 1872, women could not even vote, yet Woodhull blank for U.S. president. Again, look at our context clues. 1872, that happened in the past. So, are we going to add a future verb or a past tense verb? What makes that connection? Past. Good. Continue on. Let's read it together. She blank not win. Did that happen in the past or the present? Because this one represents past and this one represents present. So let's think about, when was she winning? In 1872. When did that happen? In the past. Continue on, read with me. However, she blank a lot of attention from people. Okay, we're still talking about Woodhull. Woodhull is from the what? 1800s. She ran for president in 1872. That all happened in the past. Now this is a present tense verb because it's ending with that S, right? This is a past tense irregular verb, right? So, since everything happened in the past, going to choose got, right? So, what we're really doing is looking at the context of the story, the tense. So you want to read, right? Number 2, you want to look for context clues. Look for context clues, such as time words, right? Oops. Sorry. And then 3, you want to make a connection to the tense using the correct verb. Okay? And you're choosing between past, present, and future. So in today's work, it's really, really important to look at the context clues. And on some of these context clues are not in that same sentence. You gotta look back. You gotta look around. You gotta look at the whole story. Who is the character? When was the character from? What are the time words they were using? Are they changing time words and now changing tense? Now, they did that here for an important reason, to compare it to today, which is fine. You can do that in writing. You can change the tense as long as you do it for a good reason and you do it correctly. Okay? Let's continue on. Let's look at number 1 and what you're going to do for your independent practice, okay? You're going to read each pair of sentences. If the verb tense in the second sentence is correct, you write a C. If it's incorrect, you write an I. What does that mean? So right here, we're focusing on the second sentence. How are we going to check it? By reading, looking for context clues using the time words, and make a connection to the tense using the correct verb. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, let's read it together though. Okay, ready? Victoria Woodhull died in 1927. All right. It says here, today few people remember Woodhull's amazing story. So this one is happening in the past, right? Because I have that ED, I have 1927. But we need to focus on which sentence? The second. So I look at it. It says, today, few people remember Woodhull's amazing story. that might be true, because actually today I honestly didn't really know a lot about Woodhull until we read the story. Now look at my time word here. When is today? What tense? Do you think it's past, present, future? It's present, right? It's happening right now. Now look at the action word. Which one is the action word? It is remember. Okay, that's an action. When you remember something, that's an action. Now, is this action word in the correct tense? That's what we're checking. Is it the correct tense? If you said yes, you are correct. It is correct because remember is a present tense verb. Today is a present tense time. So we are making a connection with those time words and the verb tense. So as you continue on, take your time. It's not a rushing thing, okay? We're reading both sentences, but we're focusing on the second sentence, okay? We're looking at our context clues, time words, and then we're also looking at the tense of the verb. So these are the steps you want to take to be successful today. Make sure you're making those connections and make sure you're using those context clues. I have anchor charts posted on verb tenses and irregular verbs to help you so that you can remember what to add or how a past tense verb should look, present tense, or a future tense verb. And I also will have some irregular verb examples there so you can remember how to use those. I will also be posting those linking verbs like was, is, are, did to help you, okay? Now, looking at your exit ticket, you're going to read each set of verbs in the word boxes, okay? These are your verbs. These are your options, and I will have these options for you on your multiple choice, and you're going to write the correct form of the verb on each line. So you're doing the same exact skills that we learned in the beginning. Okay, you're reading, you're looking for context clues, which are time words. You're making a connection to the tense by using the correct verb form, either past, present, or future. That's going to depend on what your context clues are. So as you're reading, when my grandfather was in the Navy, blank, he blank helicopters. Okay? What are your context clues here? Well, I see was, that's happening in the past. If he was in the Navy, he already did something with the helicopters. So you have to make those connections. Okay? As you continue on, here's the time word, right? So make sure when you're reading, you're making connections to those context clues, whether it's another verb tense that's you need to match with, or it's a time word. All right? Good luck today, boys and girls. Make sure you go to Teams to complete your exit ticket today, and you choose the correct answers that fill in the blank, that make a connection to the time the action happened, depending on context clues. All right? Have an awesome day.